peeps? What's the word? You know, what's the word, peeps? What's going on? What's the haps? I'm going to sit under this tree. I kind of like this tree. Look at this tree. Yeah. So, I guess the point of this video is to continue the conversation from yesterday. Hey, bird. The bird flew up like, hey, I gotta get a seat here. I gotta reserve a seat. See, he keeps getting closer, like, hey, wait, where'd he go? Is that him? Okay, I guess he's not interested anymore, but yeah. So, yesterday I was talking about discernment and how healing is important in order to develop discernment just in general in life. And I think people downplay how important having discernment is, because a lot of people think that they're making decisions or judgments with a sound mind. But of course people think that. We're all biased about ourselves. So that's ego. So really, you got to dig deeper and look at, okay, outside of what I think or feel in this moment, I don't know. Basically, one of the first steps of developing discernment, well, I'd say that the first one is awareness, creating awareness around how you feel, and just awareness about, like, I don't know if I locked my car, but so tarot is cool and all, but if you don't, like, I think a lot of times people, they just want the answer, and so they go searching for the answer, but then sometimes they don't just stop and listen, or stop seeking answers and maybe just sit with themselves and see if the answer is closer within reach than they think. Because, I mean, the reality of it is, tarot readings only help confirm and validate what you already know and what you're already feeling. So eventually it gets to a point where learning to discern how you feel and not needing validation to know, whether it's true or not, or like getting to a point where you trust your intuition enough to where you don't need to rely on a tarot reading in order to inform you of what you know. So feeling your feelings, like a lot of people don't really stop to do this, and it's something that you kind of have to be intentional about, because there's a lot of distraction in the world, like that motorcycle with that radio that just, completely threw me off, and you can't think, you can't even feel sometimes in a way that would be healthy. So I think there's a lot of people out here who are kind of numb, and so that can impact discernment too, because people get to a point where they're just making decisions on autopilot, or they're doing what they think their family wants them to do, or they're doing what they think society wants them to do. And really, when you're doing that, you're not really thinking about how you feel or what your perspective is about that. I mean, especially if you don't do any healing, and then you just grow up, and it's like a lot of people don't realize that their beliefs are not really their own beliefs. Their values are not really entirely their own values, because we derive those things from our family of origin, and our family of origin's not always right. In fact, a lot of people's family of origins are dysfunctional. So that's where the healing starts, is recognizing that, maybe these things that you believe or value, or these perspectives you have, these feelings you're having, are they really your own? Sitting with yourself and saying, how do I feel about this, and why do I feel this way about this, is important. I mean, the other thing is, if you have been traumatized, or, have PTSD, or, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, it can make it harder for you to feel your feelings and know how you're really feeling about things, because again, you're detached from yourself. When you go through trauma and shit like that, it impacts you, and then you it's this weird thing of your mind and your body kind of become disconnected from one another, and you become detached from your real self, because you had to hide that part of yourself, or push that part of yourself down or away, because other people may not have been entirely accepting of that. But that's why it's so important, when you get out of or away from environments that are traumatizing or have caused you some type of dysfunction, to sit with yourself and figure out, like, first off, processing that grief and that trauma, and going, it's pretty tedious work. You really need a therapist for it, to be honest with you. But because this is not just like common knowledge that people just know how to do this. So really processing trauma, processing grief, and feeling those feelings that have come up that were not originally there, that aren't a part of yourself. These are memories and traumas and things like that, that you need to feel the painful feelings of what it was that you were put through. Because if you haven't healed those things, a lot of times the ways that you're feeling about things or viewing things is coming from a lens that is trauma-based, basically. So everything that's going through that filter is distorted. Yeah, distorted. So therefore, any feelings that you might possibly have, it can be hard to tell if you haven't healed, like where that's coming from. Or also it's hard if you haven't healed traumas from the past to figure out, how are you feeling in the present about things. I think I'm gonna have to move because this motherfucker is walking over here. Walking too close over here. My legs hurt anyway. Yeah, so it's a process, the whole feeling your feelings thing, because not saying you can't figure out how you feel about stuff present day if you haven't processed or grieved trauma. You still can. It's just a lot of people are numb, and if you really think about it, I don't know, man. So that's part of how you start doing that, is going back and looking at things that happened to you that you haven't really fully acknowledged yet. Because your body gets stuck basically in a, what do they call it? Like a chronic freeze state, flight, fight, freeze, and fawn. If you've been through enough trauma, your body gets stuck. I don't know how to explain this. It's like a lot of times people who are in the freeze state, they'll find themselves kind of just like, at times, getting stuck in day-to-day life with decision making or what to do, like kind of just, I don't know how to explain it. Like it feels like you can't do anything even though you can. It's just like, but if you feel into it, it's because your body just feels so not good. I don't know. I'm trying to describe it based on my own experience with it, because I have that issue of being kind of stuck in a perpetual freeze state. And it's basically where, you think you're free. Your mind tells you you're free, but your body has been traumatized. So like, you can go look at that book, The Body Keeps the Score. I think it's okay so far from what I've read. I'm not as impressed as people act like people should be. But that book talks about it, where it's like when you've been through a lot of trauma, your body basically absorbs that pattern. I don't know how, I guess energetically speaking, but also emotionally speaking. And so the combination of those things over time, you don't realize it, like I said, because your mind and your body are detached, but I don't know, you're still stuck. I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe, to be honest with you, the freeze state and getting stuck like that. But anyway, that type of shit can make it hard to tap into how you feel and figure out, like, how am I feeling right now, and is how I'm feeling right now based on like what is going on in the present, or is it, because like CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress, I think a lot of people don't realize they have it, and it's like you'll randomly just start feeling sad, or you'll randomly just feel lonely, or you'll randomly just start feeling anxious or depressed out of nowhere, and you don't know why. And I know I struggle with this. I know family members who I've talked to seem to struggle with this, where, you know, you're doing fine, and all of a sudden, you know, randomly on a Friday, you start feeling lonely or whatever, and you can't figure out, like, where is this coming from? Because everything in my life presently is not an issue. Well, it's probably coming from an unhealed place, or some type of subconscious. Basically, it comes from, like, you were made to feel a certain way growing up based on how you were parented, and it comes from a dysfunctional space. And it's like usually like a parent who maybe made you, it doesn't necessarily have to be this, but this is just an example, a parent that made you feel bad a lot of the time, and so emotionally speaking there wasn't a whole lot of stability and balance. You know, if you had a parent that was kind of mean to you and whatever, like, you basically, your body learns how to respond to that in emotionally speaking and energetically. And so what happens is, once you get out of that traumatic environment or situation, your body is still responding as if you're still there. You feel me? Even when the stimulus of what created that is not there. That's why it's so important to, if you have been traumatized by, you know, somebody growing up, to heal that. And if that person hasn't changed, or they haven't, you know, worked through their stuff, or they're still doing the same shit to you, you really have to distance yourself from certain people. Because again, a lot of times if you stay around dysfunctional people, or the dysfunctional parents who raised you, if that's the case, it kind of keeps that pattern going and makes it harder to heal that. But over time, as you're away from the stimulus that originally caused that wound, basically these are called emotional flashbacks, and it's complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's what I'm talking about, where you'll just feel lonely or sad or whatever, or any type of emotion, anger even, out of nowhere. And it's because, like I said, your body has kind of gotten stuck in that pattern. So when that starts happening, like, allowing yourself to feel that way though, but also recognizing that it could not be about something currently. So if it's not about something currently, where in your life, where in childhood, when were you made to feel that way? Is there a specific memory attached to it? Usually with CPTSD there's not, which is the reason there's not with CPTSD, is because CPTSD comes from chronic trauma. So basically, so like, you're around somebody who's so dysfunctional that, like, more times than not, you are being made to feel like shit, basically. So it's chronic trauma. It's not just like one event. It's like, oh, if you were in a whole childhood of having a narcissistic parent or an abusive parent, it's like, yeah, it's that basically, where, and that's why it's not tied to just one memory, because unfortunately it's tied to probably an entire childhood of emotional, like, of memories, but also just like emotional memory, where you were made to feel like shit or not good growing up. And so then, like I said, you get away from the trauma, and that stuff starts showing up randomly, and it seems like it's out of nowhere, but you just haven't healed that pattern. So it's about recognizing it and becoming aware and being like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Where is this coming from? And with my clients, you know, like, I have some clients who, like, if they have PTSD or CPTSD, I'm thinking of one client, and it's like, I think he was just telling me he struggles to feel how he feels, and he's like, how, you know, and I think that's what he said. But I have another client, and she's 12. This is very sad. And she feels this way a lot too, where she's just like, I just feel neutral. I feel, just kind of numb. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's because you're living with a crazy fucking bitch who argues and like picks arguments with her. She sounds narcissistic. Her mom has a personality disorder anyway. So this girl never knows how she feels. And it's like, yeah, because she has PTSD and she's so enthralled in the trauma that there's no way for her to really feel a whole lot. Her body has kind of gone numb because she's been so immersed in trauma, and that's really sad because she's only 12. So my point is, you know, part of how you heal this is like creating awareness. First off, getting out of the environment. Like, it's tough because there's not a whole lot I can do to really fully alleviate or help this little girl alleviate her pain, because really the main alleviation is going to be her getting the fuck away from these crazy motherfuckers that she lives with. And she can't do that until she's 18. So, you know, it's tough because if you're still in the trauma actively, there really is not, like, you're not going to be able to fully heal those things. You're going to be numb because you're in danger. Your body is telling you, hey, I'm in danger. There's, you know, something wrong here. And it's hard to process all of those emotions because you're in constant pain. So you just go numb. And that's what this little girl is dealing with. And it's so sad. But luckily, well, I don't know if it's luckily, I don't know if they're even going to open the case up with her. But yeah, I had to report her mom recently for being a crazy fucking bitch. And to be honest with you, I was scared to report her mom because her mom's a crazy fucking bitch. So, you know, and that comes from my own issues, from my past. It's a sore spot. I don't want to step on any crazy bitch's toes because I know what happens when you do that. I've seen it firsthand. So, you know, that's part of the first step is like if you're in an abusive situation or traumatic situation, or, you know, you're still unfortunately a child and you're stuck in that situation that's dysfunctional, finding a way to get out of it. Well, obviously as a kid you can't do that, but like if that's happening, going and talking to someone about it so that it, you know, the person can be reported so that you can at least attempt to have some amount of safety. But yeah, that's the first step, is really getting away from the person who created that wound. And then once you do that, you know, your emotions are gonna be all over the place. You're gonna be depressed, you're gonna be anxious, and you're not gonna know why. And so that's where going to that place, or going to your emotions, and, you know, even if you have CPTSD and you can't attach it to a certain memory, still acknowledging that you're feeling that way and allowing yourself to feel it, and cultivating a relationship with yourself surrounding it. Like, those were times in your childhood that you didn't have that soothing or comfort from a parent like you were supposed to. So in order to heal it, you basically have to be that parent for yourself and go to that place and say, okay, what do I need right now? I'm feeling like shit. What's going to help me feel better? Like, you can also say, why am I feeling this way? But if you can't figure it out, just doing things that, ouch, bring you peace and comfort when you're feeling that way. Not escaping the emotion. Just finding ways to feel it and also soothe yourself at the same time. Like walking, or I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but yeah, you gotta feel how you feel, and then it's complex. Let me see what else. went off my Bluetooth. But yeah, trying to think if there's anything else. So how do you start working through this and not feeling numb? If you feel numb, or, you know, how do you heal these patterns? Big part of it is just learning to sit with yourself and sit with the discomfort and sit with the pain and the anxiety, and not doing anything. Like, I know that sounds kind of odd, but like, not trying to escape from it is what I'm trying to say. Not trying to get rid of it, not trying to push it away, just being like, okay, this is painful, I feel this way. Where is this coming from? And what I was going to say earlier is one of the things that I have my clients do if they're struggling with this, like feeling their feelings and figuring out what they want and need. It's like, okay, well, that's because you were never taught how to validate, or like you were never taught that your emotions were valid. And so you learn to basically ignore your own feelings in order to appease other people. So you become very aware of, how everybody else is feeling, but then you have no clue how the fuck you're feeling. So basically it puts you in this pattern of people pleasing and, being real in tune with other people's emotions. But a lot of times, people who are codependent or people pleasers, or even, well, no, that's a different thing. They have a hard time figuring out what decision to make because they don't really know how they feel, or they struggle to know how they feel because, again, they haven't developed that inner world of theirs because they didn't have that validated as a child. And when your parents don't pay attention to how you feel and validate your inner world, you don't have one. You don't develop an inner world. You develop an outer world, and that's where the internal versus external locus of control comes in, where, when you've been traumatized, a lot of people who have been traumatized, they end up developing an external locus of control. You can Google that if you want, but external locus of control is basically where you don't feel like it's kind of like having a victim mentality. And even if you don't have a victim mentality, it's just you don't know how to take control over your life, in a sense. And you're basing, how do I even describe this? Okay, so someone who has an internal locus of control, usually that type of person had parents who validated their inner world, like I said, validated their emotions, and helped them to develop confidence and self-esteem to know that they can handle whatever life brings at them. And like basically that they're not just helpless. You're not just helpless. You do have some control over what happens. You're not just out here. So, but you might want to Google it for a better definition. But external locus of control is like somebody who doesn't believe that. They don't believe that they have the ability or the power to change things or make their life better or do something different. So then it becomes very externally focused, like, well, I can't do this because XYZ, or, it becomes more of a victim mentality. So basically that's why it's important to develop like that part of yourself. And a lot of us don't get that or haven't gotten that growing up. So basically what I was saying before is with one of my clients, he's like trying to tap into like what, like his own feelings and figure out, what he wants and what he needs. And I said, okay, so like one of the things I recommend people doing, and you don't have to do it in this exact way, but there's this thing called the mindfulness bell, and you can get it on any app store. And basically I told him you can set the bell to go off like once an hour or at any interval you want. And basically when it goes off, like checking in with yourself and being like, okay, how do I feel right now? You know, what's going on with me? What am I thinking? How am I feeling? What do I need right now? Is there anything I need? How is my body feeling physically? Am I feeling anything at all? And, you know, people who have PTSD, it might take a little while to thaw out those emotions, and it might for a while just be like, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything. And then over time, the more you get connected to yourself, the more easy it is to get more, where was I going with that? So yeah, basically, that's a part of what it takes to develop your internal world, is really learning about yourself and figuring out what it is that you need, what it is that you want, how you're feeling in any moment. And a lot of times people don't know because maybe there is no inner world or inner dialogue or whatever. So it's like creating that dialogue with yourself and reteaching yourself like how to be emotionally healthy, basically, because if you weren't taught these things, how to validate or acknowledge your own emotions, then, well, no wonder, you know, a lot of people are numb or making decisions based on, you know, a lot of times they don't even know why they're making the decision because they're so detached from their self, from their own emotions, because nobody ever taught them that they had a right to feel their feelings. I mean, literally, a lot of parents will do things or say things when growing up that invalidates a child's emotions, which leads them to then just suppress their emotions or say, fuck my emotions, I guess. And over time, that leads to numbing. You know, you become numb, or you do different things to distract yourself or push that down. You know, weed, alcohol. I mean, nah. I'm sorry. I'm going to exclude weed from that one. I don't agree with that. I don't know why I even said that. Because actually, quite honestly, weed helped me get more connected to my own emotions. It allowed me to basically calm down enough to not feel afraid to feel my feelings. So I don't know why I just said that. Especially sativas. Doing sativas or hybrids back in the day, I would like utilize it to bring up certain memories and traumas, and like I said, calm down enough to be able to feel some of those things or face some of those things. So I don't really agree with that part about, but substances like alcohol, any other type of drug, what else? Sex, what else? Anything you can really escape into, you know? Even denial, just being in denial. Yeah. So I think that's really it for now, is just like learning to sit with yourself and figuring out how you feel in any given moment, and asking yourself if this has to do with the present or the past or both. Sometimes it's a combination of the two. Because a lot of how we feel present day is influenced by the experiences we've had and the people we've been around. So a lot of times present feelings are both about the present and the past. Sometimes the future too, if you have anxiety and you worry and stuff like that. But yeah, the objective is basically to reconnect with yourself and basically reconnecting body and mind. Because like I said before, when you grow up in certain situations, you learn to detach from how you feel. You learn to invalidate and suppress your own emotions, because that's what, if you're in a dysfunctional situation, that's what the people around you are doing. So then you learn to do that to yourself. You learn to neglect yourself over time until you're basically a shell of yourself and you're really only operating based on what you think other people want you to do. And I think there's actually probably a lot more people than not who are doing shit like that. Not really feeling how they feel. Thinking that, they are, but not realizing that some of the feelings, or a lot of the feelings they're having, could just be internalized beliefs, thought processes, that thereby impact how you see the world, how you feel about yourself, how you see yourself. So it can be confusing. But if you're patient with yourself, and patient with the process, it works. But it's a pain in the ass. And if it doesn't feel like it's a pain in the ass, then you're not doing it right. If it doesn't feel like it's tedious and exhausting, healing takes work. It really does. And it takes a lot of feeling and thawing out how you feel. Getting more connected to how you feel. But a lot of people don't want to feel, too. A lot of people are running from how they feel. When you feel anxious, when you feel depressed, when you feel sad, there's a reason. It's not coming from nowhere. So that's what you have to figure out. That's your objective. That's the job. That's part of the healing work, is figuring out, where does that come from? How did it get there? Why am I feeling this way? Because you're not just feeling depressed and anxious for no reason, man. I'm sorry. You're not. Anxiety is not just something you're born with. Depression is not something you're just born with. It develops and appears for a variety of reasons, and one of them is the environment you're in. Yes, some of it is nature, like your genetics, but to be honest with you, the environment that you're in determines what genes present. So I've said this before, if you are someone who's prone to anxiety and depression, but you're in an environment where you feel loved and safe and seen and heard and validated, the likelihood that that gene is actually going to present itself is a lot less. Versus if you're in an environment where, yeah, the genes are that, your parents are an alcoholic or like schizophrenic or whatever. If you're in a fucked up environment, that has a higher chance of bringing those genes out, I guess. I don't know the exact details of it or terminology, but the environment you're in definitely determines a lot, even if you are predispositioned to have certain things like mental health issues or alcoholism or drug addiction. A lot of times those things come about because needs haven't been met and you've been hurt emotionally. I mean, that doesn't come from nowhere. So that's why part of the healing is getting yourself in an environment that you can feel your feelings, you do feel safe, and giving that to yourself. not just being around people who provide that, but also learning to provide that for yourself. And if you're around people who are disregarding your feelings, they're, mean, they're cruel, they're saying they're not considering you, etc. That's not going to help you heal. So, like I said, the shit comes from somewhere. And, even though we can't, turn back time and whatever, like, it is fucked up that I don't know. It's just a lot of work to heal, so and yeah. So just rewind this whole video and do what I said. If you want to feel better. There's a lot of different ways to feel better, but those approaches I'm talking about are things that I have specifically done myself that I know for sure work. And yeah, I'll be back later. Peace.